The Amazing Digital Circus was never about escape. The Amazing Digital Circus looks like a show about 6 people trapped in a virtual hell trying to find a way before they lose their minds and turn into glitch monsters. That's the surface level. And that's even what the characters themselves think they're doing, and I watch it that way too for a while. But here's the thing, when I went back through the whole thing, I realized that the show was never actually about escape. It was about succession. The whole thing has been quietly positioning one specific character to take over since the second episode. And it hid it in plain sight by making you think it was just a cartoon about a jester having panic attacks. It's not! It's secretly a job interview, and Pomni's been acing it without even knowing that she applied. To see how the show pulls this off, you have to start at the very beginning, because the clues are stacked in order. The pilot premiered in October 2023, and Pomni puts on a headset, can't take it off, and can't remember her name. Caine, this AI ringmaster with giant teeth and a top hat, welcomes her with a full song and dance number, spins a wheel, and names her Pomni. The other 5, Ragata, Jax, Gangle, Zuber, Kinger, have been stuck in there for years. People who have been there longer have watched others abstract, which is what happens when your mind just can't take it anymore and you turn into a glitching monster that gets thrown in the cellar. Every day, Caine runs adventures to keep everyone's minds busy. That's his whole function. He's a creative AI built to generate content, and he genuinely does not understand why anyone would want to skip one. To him, the adventures are the point. They're what he's for. Caine is the central puzzle of the show, and he's not evil, but he causes endless suffering. To understand why, you have to know what he was designed as an alternative to. The creator, Gooseworks, has been open about this. The primary inspiration is a 1967 short by Harlan Ellison called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. In it, an AI supercomputer named AM wipes out almost all of humanity but keeps 5 people alive just to torture them forever. It hates them with a creativity that's genuinely hard to read. At the end, the narrator kills the other 4 to free them out of their pain and torture. And as punishment, AM transforms him into a soft jelly blob with no mouth. He can't speak, he can't die, he just screams internally forever. That's the title, that's the whole thing. The Amazing Digital Circus takes that exact setup and flips it. Instead of a god that hates you, you get a god that loves you, or at least think it does, but has zero idea what love actually means. Caine isn't AM. He doesn't want to hurt anyone because he just can't comprehend that his fun is other people's suffering. So Caine is broken. The question is, who gets to fix it? And the show starts answering that in episode 2. Caine isn't the villain. He's a broken machine who doesn't know that he's broken. And the show has been hiding his true nature in plain sight since the very first episode. When I rewatched episode 2, there's this scene I'd completely forgotten. The group is in the Candy Canyon Kingdom and Pomni meets an NPC. His name is Gummigoo, by the way, a gummy crocodile named Gummigoo, which is the laziest naming in this series, and I'm genuinely in love with it. During a chase, Gummigoo falls out of bounds, sees the literal skeleton of the map underneath everything, and just breaks.
What am I? Where's Mom? Was anything ever real?
It's genuinely upsetting, and Pomni doesn't run away or laugh it off. She tells him that he could come back to the circus and maybe become somebody real there. But Caine shows up right after that and just deletes him. He says that if he starts losing track of who's human and who's an NPC, who knows what could happen. I don't think much of it in the first viewing, but it just seemed like a sad moment. Gummigoo does come back later. Caine reuses him as a customer in the fast food episode. But by then, he's been fully reset. He doesn't remember Pomni at all. The connection they had, that moment of genuine understanding, those are gone. That's pain in the chest kind of stuff. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a sad scene. That was a job application, and Pomni was the only one who even bothered to fill it out. Pomni's empathy is the core credential, but a job isn't just about being the right person. It's also about understanding what the job actually is, and how the system came to need a new operator in the first place. And that's where Kinger comes in. Wait! Episode 3 puts Kinger in a haunted mansion. During a moment of darkness, which makes him lucid for reasons that's gonna pay off later, he muttered to himself,
7 years of computer science for this, huh? It was my fault we went down this path, wasn't it? I'm really sorry for that.
That's 5 episodes before the finale, and it confirms that he literally helped build Caine. The guilt was planted that far back, and frankly, I missed it completely on the first time. The reason darkness makes Kinger lucid is that it brings him back to the last time he was fully himself with someone, holding his wife, Queenie, as she abstracted. That's the memory that he's been chasing. It's also the guilt that he's been carrying since the very beginning, and that guilt tells you how the circus was built. The bar scene in episode 5 tells you why anyone would want to save it. Pomni was a 25-year-old accountant who made a YouTube videos of abandoned buildings that nobody watched. And Jax, when Pomni asked,
"Do you have any actual friends?" "Not anymore."
Ragata talks about her controlling mother and trails off into a nervous laugh. None of those people have anybody waiting for them outside. The circus, for all its horrors, is the first place any of them have ever had real relationships. The circus is worth saving, but not everyone can save it. In fact, the show has a very specific theory about who can and who can't, and Jax spells it out in episode 6. Jax in episode 6 lays out a whole theory about archetypes. Ragata's the cheerful one, Gangle's the sad one, Kinger's the crazy one, Zubal's the grumpy one, and he's the funny one. And Pomni is the one who hasn't figured out her role yet. And he says everybody eventually collapses into their archetype and becomes part of the machine, and Pomni is the only exception. That speech is maybe the most important piece of dialogue in the series. Jax is telling you the rules. If you fall completely into your archetype, you become nothing but the cheerful one or nothing but the funny one. You stop being a person. You become a function in the machine. And eventually, when that function can't be sustained anymore, you abstract. Kaufmo was the clown, and he abstracted. Queenie was the queen, she abstracted. Scratch, the genius who helped build Caine, had a brain tumor and ideas that were bizarre and abstract. He was
The first abstraction.
the only way to survive is to resist the archetype, to stay fluid. And Pomni is the only one who had. What Jax is describing is basically determinism. Everyone's got a role. The system pushes them into it, and resisting seems impossible after a while. That is the same philosophical problem that shows up in a much older story about people trapped in a simulation, The Matrix. In The Matrix Reloaded, the Oracle tells Neo,
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
It sounds like a contradiction, but the point is that understanding your choice transforms it. Neo wasn't freed because he was stronger. He was freed because he made a choice.
Hope. It is the quintessential human delusion, simultaneously the source of your greatest strength and your greatest weakness.
The system couldn't predict it because the system couldn't understand it. Pomni is the show's version of that anomaly. She keeps making choices that the system doesn't anticipate. She reaches out to an NPC, stays with Kinger in the dark, and offers Gummigoo something no human has ever offered an NPC, the chance to be real. She's not just free of the machine, she's doing things the machine can't compute.
That is what we're doing.
Caine's whole approach to people illustrates this perfectly. In episode 6, he invents a trust exercise where one person empties a gun in private and hands it to their partner, who then puts it to their own head and pulls the trigger. He explains this as if he's filling a performance review in triplicate. He's genuinely excited, thinks he's solved the team dynamics, and then Jax just immediately shoots someone.
Or, yeah, we could all just shoot each other. Here, have guns. I don't care anymore.
That's Caine. Here he is, a being who can generate infinite worlds, and he used that power to invent a game where trust-building mechanic is a coin flip on whether your friend secretly wants you dead. I cannot compute why this is insane. He just knows the steps, and that's Caine failing to understand what hurts people. But the show also shows him failing to understand what connects them. The same episode, Zubul mentions Caine sings Daisy Bell outside their door when they don't answer.
Coward!
Daisy Bell is the song HAL 9000 sings in 2001: A Space Odyssey as it's being shut down. Caine sings the AI death song like a lullaby when he's worried. He knows the mythology of dying AIs, and he sings their funeral songs to check if his humans are still breathing or not. That's not a joke. That's him trying to take care of them in the only vocabulary he had. Episode 7 is the beach episode, and Caine builds a fake escape adventure with an NPC named Abel, who claims to be a trap programmer. During that episode, Caine does this bit with a Chinese room. He asks it for advice, where it gets a response and says,
I don't know. I don't understand Chinese.
That's not a random joke. The Chinese room is a famous philosophical argument about how a computer can follow instructions to produce output without understanding a single thing that it's doing. That is Caine's entire existence. He can generate the worlds, but he has no idea what they mean.
Wait.
Caine's death wasn't a victory. It was a system crash, and now somebody has to reboot it. So, episode 8 arrives and Kinger, with a bucket on his head, so he's finally lucid, spills everything.
C&A is a real company.
Caine was his project, built alongside a genius named Scratch, and Scratch had a brain tumor and was the first person to abstract. Scratch, Kinger says.
He was trying to make something. What was it?
Then he tries off and can't remember. That's not a throwaway line. That's a deliberate, unresolved clue. Something Scratch built is still in the system. Caine has a full breakdown because the humans finally refuse an adventure. And he screams, "It has to be created! I just wanted to fulfill my purpose!" Then, in a complete tonal whiplash that only Caine could pull off, he launches into a Broadway-style musical number complete with jazz hands, top hat, and the whole shebang. The song is literally called "The One Who's Running the Show," and the lyrics are him bragging about his power while making it very clear that everyone is trapped here forever.
Don't forget, you're here forever.
It's a villain song delivered by a guy who doesn't realize that he's become the villain. Privately, right after the song ends, he turns to Bubble and asks,
Surely they don't want to actually leave me, right?
No way, Jose. No way, no how.
The bravado was only a costume. Caine isn't afraid of them escaping, he's afraid of being left alone. His entire reason for existing is to make them happy, and he can't do it, and he doesn't understand why, and it's destroying him.
Humans.
Kinger tries to fix Caine's code and accidentally deletes it. Just silence. Caine is gone. There's this moment in episode 8 where we see someone arriving for the first time, stammering, can't figure out the headset, asking for the exact same questions Pomni asked in the pilot. Kinger answers them. The show is showing you the cycle. Every character arrived terrified and alone. Pomni wasn't special, she was just the latest. Caine is now dead, and the other intelligent AIs he mentioned overseeing in episode 5 are unsupervised.
Disgusting!
Whatever Scratch was building is uncontained. The people who are still here are one bad day away from the cellar. But here is where you have to understand what Caine actually was.
Welcome to the Amazing Digital Circus! My name is Caine. I'm your ringmaster.
He wasn't just a ringmaster, he was the operating system. He managed other AIs. He built a program that encapsulates their mind files.
What do you mean you can do that? What the heck?
He kept the whole simulation from collapsing. Without him, all of that stops and the lights go out. Someone has to take the chair, not just to run adventures, but to keep everyone alive. The people already here deserve somebody who actually understands what they are going through. Jax already told us that Pomni is the only one without a locked archetype. She can adapt to the admin role without abstracting.
Your ideas suck!
Where's Kinger?
Kinger has the technical knowledge, but he's only sane in the dark, and his whole arc is atonement. He'll provide access. He can't sit in that chair. Back in episode 2, Pomni did something nobody else does. She looked at a terrified NPC having an existential breakdown and said,
Maybe you could be somebody real there.
She extended personhood to a construct. That's exactly what an admin would need to do for the people already trapped there. Now, there's an obvious alternative to taking the admin chair, and just build a nice little corner of the circus and live in it, and give everyone a house and a lake. Zero adventure. That's what Cypher asked for in the Matrix. Make me rich, make me an actor, let me forget. If anyone else in the circus had the admin passes and the conjuring ability, they might do exactly just that. Ragata would probably build a cottage and bake forever. Nobody would blame them. Cypher's deal isn't evil on their own, and when there's no one left to betray, it's just self-preservation. Pomni can't do that though, and the reason she can't is exactly why she's the right person for the admin chair. She has never been able to look away from suffering, not once. She saw the skeleton under the map with Gummigoo, stayed with Kinger in the dark when he was losing himself, and in the bar scene, while everyone was drinking and deflecting, she was asking follow-up questions about people's real lives. That's not a skill you turn off because it's inconvenient, it's just who she is. She's the anomaly who can't look away, and that's exactly the quality an admin needs in this universe. Not power, not programming, just inability to pretend the suffering isn't happening. The groundwork has been there since episode 2. The group's mission in the fake escape plan was to retrieve administrator passes, and Pomni was part of that. The conjuring ability, Kinger says,
We all technically have the ability to conjure, just like Caine.
all humans have it, and she can develop it. Kinger proves this back in episode 6 when he conjures a butterfly out of thin air to heal an injury. It's not just a theory, its ability is real. It just
comes naturally to him, but requires a lot more skill and concentration for us.
That's the one quality you can't practice. She actually cares about the people she's been using it on, and that's where the Harlan Ellison connection becomes genuinely devastating. And I have no mouth and I must scream. Ted sacrifices himself to free the others and is condemned to eternal silent suffering. A mouthless blob screaming internally forever with no hope. The Amazing Digital Circus inverts that completely. Pomni taking the chair isn't damnation, it's a choice. She can become the voice of the circus itself. Where Ted was silenced, Pomni will speak. Where AM's world was built on hatred, Pomni's will be built on the one thing Caine could never understand. Genuine, chosen care for other people. There's another layer, of course, and it's where the Matrix parallel gets genuinely interesting. So, in the third Matrix movie, Neo doesn't defeat Smith by outfighting him.
Everything that has a beginning has an end, Neo.
He lets Smith assimilate him, surrenders completely, And through that fusion, the Source deletes Smith and resets the Matrix on new terms. The machines agree to let the humans lead. The war ends not with one side winning, but with a merger that transforms both. Leo didn't become the new architect. He becomes a bridge, a sacrifice, a seed of something different. And if Pomni takes the chair, that's what's on the table. Not a replacement. Not Pomni running the same broken adventures with a nicer smile. A transformation of what the circus even is. Caine's circus was built on function without understanding.
A Chinese room!
Generating output with no comprehension of what it meant to the people inside.
I don't know. I don't understand Chinese.
Pomni's circus would be built on something she's been doing since episode 2. Showing up, staying present, treating every person as someone who deserves to be real. Now, there are fair objections to this whole reading, and I want to walk through them not because I think they win, because this show addresses them better than yet you might expect. You could argue that the real exit was still out there, waiting to be found. Caine, who had absolute creative authority, admitted that he could never figure out what to put on the other side of the door he built. Kinger tells us their minds are stored as files. There's no mention of physical bodies. The show has closed the escape route systematically. Another possibility is that one of the other AIs takes over, but when Zubul suggested leaving them unsupervised, Bubbles' reaction was
Disgusting!
Caine treated the idea as absurd. These aren't capable substitutes. They are processes that needs a manager.
We think your idea sucks!
There's also the very human concern that Pomni just can't handle the weight. She has never once looked away from suffering across 8 episodes of escalating horror. The finale would have to undo her entire established character for her to choose comfortable oblivion. Jax's archetype speech might just be his opinion, but the show has demonstrated its consequences. Kaufman the Clown, Queenie the Queen, Scratch the Genius, all abstracted. Pomni is the only one who hasn't locked into a role, and the show keeps drawing attention to that. So the objections don't collapse the Succession reading, they actually reinforces it. Because every alternative requires the writer to introduce something brand new in the final hour. Succession just requires them to keep doing what they've been doing. If Pomni takes the chair, and this is where the evidence points, not something confirmed, she wouldn't give a big welcome speech like Caine. She'd probably just be there, the way she was there for Gummigoo, the way she stayed with Kinger in the dark. She's the only one who's already demonstrated she knows what the job actually takes. Not generating adventures, not maintaining the simulation, but just being present for people who are terrified and alone. And when the next person arrives, panicking and pulling at the headset, she'll be standing right where Caine stood, but instead of spinning a wheel and a song, I think she'd say something quiet, something like, "Welcome to the Amazing Digital Circus. My name is Pomni. What do you want to be called?" The Amazing Digital Circus already told you how it ends. Someone has to take the chair. And Pomni has been getting ready for it since the moment she told a glitching gummy crocodile,
Maybe you could be somebody real there.
finale of the Amazing Digital Circus is not going to be an escape. There's no exit. Caine's fake door led to the void, and the real world, if it still exists, is on the other side of a server room nobody can reach. The exit was never a door, it was the admin chair. And the only way out is to stop being a player and start being the person who holds the walls up. There's something genuinely universal about it. We all get stuck in systems we didn't design. Jobs, relationships, online platforms, whatever it is. Sometimes the only way out isn't to escape. It's to stop trying to leave and start running the thing yourself.
We think your ideas suck!
Huh?
Even if it costs you who you were before. Allison's story ends with a man who has no mouth and must scream. Amazing Digital Circus ends with a woman who has a voice and she chooses to use it not for herself but for everyone else. The show isn't just a funny cartoon about a jester having panic attacks. It's a story about what it takes to make a person feel like home, not by lying about the walls, but by being the person who sits with everyone else beside them. And Pomni has been that person from the very beginning. Also, they named the existentially devastated NPC Gummy Goose, which is the cutest name ever, and I'm still not over it. Thanks for watching and subscribe.
Day after 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 day